As this new day unfolds, we step into the awareness that nothing about this morning is ordinary. The very breath in our lungs announces that purpose is still alive, that destiny is still moving, and that heaven has already spoken concerning this day. Before the tasks begin, before the demands rise, before anything tries to attach itself to your thoughts, we take our position in the Spirit. We rise with the conviction that the day must align with the will of God, that every moment ahead is subject to His authority, and that nothing formed against us can dictate the outcome of what God has ordained. This is the hour where we set the spiritual climate. This is the moment where we speak into the unseen until the seen begins to shift. Every blessing appointed for this day, every opportunity, every answer, every open door, every step of guidance is acknowledged, welcomed, and secured in prayer. We don't walk into this day hoping for alignment. We command alignment. We don't wait for peace. We declare peace. We don't allow circumstances to choose our posture. We establish our posture before circumstances even appear. So as the light of morning breaks, we stand in the authority God has given us. We silence every voice that does not echo His promises. We cancel every negative expectation and open our spirit to divine instruction. We call this day into divine order and release every burden we've carried into the hands of the one who governs time and eternity with deliberate intention, with faith that cannot be shaken, and with a heart ready to obey. We command this day to come into its full purpose and yield its full harvest according to the will of God. When we talk about establishing spiritual authority at the start of the day through intentional prayer, we are talking about a posture that begins before the world awakens around you, before the noise of the day tries to define your focus, and before circumstances attempt to set the tone for how your mind, spirit, and emotions will function. It is the recognition that the first moments of your morning are not casual moments. They are moments of spiritual government. These early minutes carry the power to shift atmospheres, redirect outcomes, and anchor your heart in the strength of God before you have even taken your first step into the responsibilities that await you. Establishing spiritual authority is not about forcing power, but about remembering the power God has already entrusted to you. So for to pull you, it is the understanding that heaven has already given you access, already given you promises, and already positioned you as a steward over your own day. And all you do in prayer is stand in what has already been given. When you wake with intentionality, you are not reacting to life. You are commanding it to flow according to the will of God. There is something sacred about the quiet of the morning, something that almost feels like the atmosphere is holding its breath as you rise. In these early moments, the spiritual realm is more clearly sensed, and distractions have not yet begun their attempt to pull your attention in different directions. Beginning your day with intentional prayer allows you to step into that stillness and take authority before anything else tries to claim it. You establish order before disorder attempts to creep in. You build a fortress of peace before agitation tries to enter. You wrap your spirit in strength before weakness has the chance to speak. This is why spiritual authority must be established early. When you wait until the chaos comes, you are already fighting from behind. But when you rise and speak before anything else has the opportunity to influence you, you take your rightful place as the one who governs your day instead of the one who merely reacts to it. Intentional prayer at the start of the day is a declaration of alignment. It is the moment where you invite God into every hour that lies ahead and surrender your plans so that His plans can lead. It is not rushed, it is not mechanical, and it is not something done out of obligation. It is something done because you understand that authority flows from awareness. Awareness of who God is to you, awareness of what he has already spoken, awareness of the identity you carry as one called, strengthened, and equipped. When you start your day in prayer, you affirm that you are not moving in your own power, that you are not carrying the weight of the day alone, and that you refuse to rely on human effort when divine assistance is available. This is the difference between a spiritually empowered day and a spiritually vulnerable one. One begins in divine partnership, and the other begins in human pressure. In those moments of intentional prayer, you begin to declare what will govern your thoughts, what will shape your emotions, and what will influence your decisions. You refuse to let anxiety be the first voice that speaks to you. You refuse to let fear outline the borders of your day. You refuse to let uncertainty cloud the clarity God has already promised. Establishing spiritual authority is an act of refusing spiritual passivity. It is the moment where you confront the invisible forces that try to distract you from your purpose. It is where you silence doubt before it attempts to whisper. It is where you dismantle every worry before it tries to build a home in your mind. When you pray with intention, you are not merely speaking words. You are constructing a spiritual environment that governs what can enter and what cannot. You are deciding what has access to your peace, your joy, your focus, and your strength. There's also a deep spiritual intelligence involved when you establish authority early. You understand that whatever happens later cannot override the spiritual ground you have claimed in the morning. Even if challenges arise, they cannot uproot the peace you have planted. Even if unexpected situations occur, they cannot unseat the authority you have spoken over your day. Morning prayer fortifies you in advance. It builds a reservoir of strength that you draw from when the day attempts to drain you. It stabilizes your emotions so that you respond from discernment rather than reaction. It clarifies your mind so that distractions don't derail your purpose. It balances your spirit so that negativity cannot shift you out of alignment. When you begin your day in prayer, you are planting seeds of order, strength, and clarity that will continue to grow throughout every moment that follows. Another dimension of establishing spiritual authority is the recognition that your words carry weight. When you speak in the morning, you are not simply expressing hope. You are commanding spiritual alignment. You are activating promises. You are summoning divine assistance. You are releasing heavenly strategies into your day. You are assigning angels to work on your behalf. Your words are not empty. They are assignments. They move into the unseen and begin rearranging things you cannot see yet. This is why intentional prayer matters. It is targeted, deliberate, and rooted in faith. It is not vague or passive. It is specific about what you are invoking, what you are rejecting, and what you are establishing. It is your spirit partnering with heaven to shape the landscape of your day before you ever step into it. When you rise with intentionality, something inside you shifts. You begin to sense a strength that wasn't there before. You begin to feel clarity where there was confusion. You begin to feel peace where there was tension. This is not accidental. It is the result of aligning your spirit with God's spirit before the day has the opportunity to pull you in different directions. Establishing authority is not about controlling life. It is about surrendering to the one who controls all things while taking your role in stewarding the moments ahead. It is the balance of yielding and declaring, receiving and commanding, listening and speaking. It is the awareness that you have a responsibility to speak into your day and a God who responds to your faith. Starting your day with intentional prayer also activates your spiritual sensitivity. It sharpens your discernment so you can recognize distractions before they become detours. It heightens your awareness of God's presence so you can sense his leading throughout the day. It awakens your inner strength so you do not crumble under pressure. It opens your mind to divine wisdom so decisions are not made from impulse, but from alignment. This sensitivity protects you, guides you, and equips you to navigate the day with confidence rather than uncertainty. Establishing spiritual authority is not about being forceful. It is about being spiritually awake, spiritually alert, and spiritually anchored. And finally, when you establish spiritual authority in the morning, you are not only shaping your own day, you are influencing the atmosphere of every environment you enter. You become a carrier of peace, a carrier of clarity, a carrier of strength, and a carrier of divine presence. Your alignment sets a tone that others can feel without you saying a word. The authority you establish within becomes the authority that surrounds you, shaping conversations, decisions, interactions, and outcomes. It creates a spiritual posture that supports everything you do, everywhere you go, and every assignment you carry throughout the day. It is the quiet but undeniable force of a life anchored in prayer from the moment the day begins. Aligning your thoughts, emotions, and expectations with God's divine will at the start of your day is one of the most transformative spiritual practices you can cultivate. It is not only a moment of surrender, but a deliberate repositioning of your inner world so that everything within you reflects what God has already spoken concerning your life. When you rise in the morning, your mind is the first battlefield. Thoughts begin to form before your feet even touch the ground, and emotions often awaken from places your spirit hasn't fully resolved. This is why intentional alignment is necessary. It is the conscious act of bringing every mental and emotional part of you into agreement with God's truth. Rather than letting unmanaged thoughts or lingering feelings dictate the path of your day, alignment is not force. It is guidance. It is allowing God to reset your internal compass so that you move through the hours ahead with clarity, steadiness, and spiritual intelligence. There are mornings when your mind wakes up racing, carrying leftover concerns from the day before, or the weight of responsibilities you know are waiting. If left unchecked, those first thoughts can begin constructing narratives that do not reflect God's promises. They can shape a tone of fear, anxiety, or pressure before you even step out of your room. But when you take the time to realign your thoughts with God's will, you interrupt that pattern. You remind your mind that it is not the master, it is the instrument. You remind your thoughts that they are not free to roam into worry, but must be brought under the authority of truth. In this moment of morning alignment, you speak to your thoughts like a leader speaking to a team, directing them, grounding them, and anchoring them in what God has said rather than what circumstances may suggest. You align your thinking with heavenly perspective so that you move through your day seeing through the lens of faith rather than limitation. Emotions, too, play a significant role in shaping the atmosphere of your day. Some mornings you may wake with heaviness, with uncertainty, or with emotions that try to overshadow the truth of who you are and the God who leads you. Morning alignment allows you to acknowledge those emotions without being dominated by them. It is not about denying what you feel, but about bringing those feelings into the presence of God, allowing His peace to reinterpret them. When you align your emotions with God's will, you invite Him into the deepest part of your inner world. You allow His comfort to soften what is tense, His assurance to lighten what feels heavy, and His love to stabilize what feels unsettled. This alignment creates emotional balance that carries you throughout your day, enabling you to remain grounded even when external circumstances shift. Expectations are another powerful force that influence your day. What you expect determines what you look for, what you prepare for, and how you interpret what happens around you. Many people begin their day expecting the same frustrations, expecting delays, expecting disappointment, or expecting things to go wrong because they have grown accustomed to patterns that were never meant to define their life. When you intentionally align your expectations with God's divine will, you rewrite the script your day would have otherwise followed. You begin expecting provision instead of lack, favor instead of resistance, guidance instead of confusion, and strength instead of struggle. You open your heart to divine possibilities rather than limiting yourself to past realities. Aligned expectations create an atmosphere of faith, a readiness to see God's hand in even the smallest details of your day. This alignment requires stillness. It requires taking time to breathe, to allow your soul to settle, to quiet the noise inside you long enough to hear the whisper of God's direction. Stillness is not the absence of movement. It is the presence of clarity. It is where you bring your inner world into order by acknowledging the one who designed it. When you enter this stillness, your thoughts slow down, your emotions settle, and your expectations shift into a place where faith can breathe in this space. You stop trying to control the day and begin allowing God to lead it. You recognize that alignment is not about bending God to your plans, but allowing Him to shape your posture so you can walk in His. Alignment also involves a willingness to release the previous day. Sometimes your spirit is ready to move forward, but your mind is still rehearsing old conversations, old disappointments, or old frustrations. When you align yourself with God's will in the morning, you intentionally release what no longer serves you. You let go of burdens that were never yours to carry. You allow God to untangle the emotional knots that accumulated overnight. This release creates room for new strength, new clarity, and new instruction. It frees you from the patterns of yesterday so you can respond to the possibilities of today with renewed clarity. It prevents old residue from clouding new horizons. Aligning your inner world with God's will is also an act of protection. When your thoughts are anchored, your emotions balanced, and your expectations rooted in faith, negative influences have less power to invade your day. You recognize distractions sooner. You resist discouragement more easily. You discern deception before it takes root. Alignment becomes a spiritual shield that guards your peace and your purpose. It keeps your heart from being swayed by every challenge and your mind from being pulled into unnecessary battles. It develops a resilience that allows you to stand firm even when circumstances are unpredictable. This alignment is also a form of spiritual agreement. When you align with God's will, you give heaven permission to move freely in your day. You open the door for divine flow. You become receptive to God's voice, more attuned to His whispers, more aware of His leading. You become a participant in what He is orchestrating rather than an observer. Heavenly alignment creates synchronicity, moments where what you need shows up at the right time, where answers come without struggle, where clarity rises without confusion, where favor meets you in unexpected ways. It positions you to walk in peace even when the day is demanding, and to operate with purpose even when the path is uncertain. Morning alignment also trains your soul to respond rather than react. When your inner world is in agreement with God, you handle interactions differently. You speak with more grace. You listen with more patience. You make decisions from a place of discernment rather than impulse. You carry yourself with a confidence that does not require explanation. Your alignment becomes visible in the way you move, speak, think, and engage. It becomes a quiet authority that speaks louder than force. It becomes the anchor that keeps you steady when the winds of the day try to push you off balance. Another powerful dimension of alignment is the shift from self-reliance to divine reliance. Too often we attempt to navigate the day in our own strength, trying to solve problems, meet expectations, and carry burdens that were never meant to be carried alone. When you align with God's will in the morning, you consciously choose partnership over pressure. You choose grace over striving. You choose divine timing over human urgency. This surrender is not weakness, it is spiritual strategy. It is the realization that alignment allows you to move more effectively, think more clearly, and respond more wisely because you are no longer operating alone. Your thoughts become steadier because they are rooted in truth. Your emotions become calmer because they are anchored in peace. Your expectations become higher because they are shaped by faith. This inner transformation shifts the entire atmosphere of your day. You feel guided rather than lost, encouraged rather than overwhelmed, strengthened rather than drained. You begin to see your day through the lens of possibility rather than limitation. Alignment creates hope where discouragement once lived and strength where weakness once lingered. It breathes life into your inner world and allows your outer world to reflect that life. Morning alignment also cultivates spiritual maturity. It develops the discipline to choose truth over emotion, faith over fear, purpose over distraction. It trains your soul to prioritize God's voice above every other voice. It teaches you how to live from the inside out rather than the outside in. When you master the art of alignment, you become less reactive to circumstances and more responsive to divine instruction. You learn to sense opportunities, avoid traps, and follow the quiet nudges of God's guidance throughout the day. Alignment is not a single moment. It is a continual posture, a way of living that begins each morning, but carries you through every moment that follows. As you align your thoughts, emotions, and expectations with God's will, you begin to walk in a level of clarity and peace that reshapes your entire day. You feel more centered, you feel more aware, you feel more purposeful, you feel more connected to God's presence, not as a distant idea, but as an active force guiding you through every conversation, every decision, and every interaction. Alignment becomes the invisible thread that weaves your day into harmony with heaven's design. It becomes the foundation upon which your strength is built and the atmosphere through which your purpose unfolds. When you consistently practice alignment each morning, it begins to reshape the patterns of your mind and the rhythms of your heart. You begin waking with more peace because you have trained your spirit to seek God first. You begin moving with more confidence because you have anchored your identity in truth. You begin expecting goodness because you have learned to see beyond what your natural eyes can perceive. Alignment becomes less of an action and more of a lifestyle, one that continually positions you to walk in the fullness of what God has prepared for you. Silencing negative influences and declaring the atmosphere of your day is a deliberate spiritual act that requires awareness, authority, and intention every morning before you interact with the world, before you engage with people, before responsibilities begin to pull at you. There are invisible forces already attempting to shape the direction of your day. Thoughts try to attach themselves. Emotional residues from yesterday try to linger. Spiritual pressures attempt to insert themselves into the earliest moments of your consciousness. This is why it is necessary to begin your day by silencing every influence that does not reflect the will of God. You cannot allow the first voice that speaks to you to be fear, doubt, heaviness, or confusion. Instead, you rise with the determination to speak into the atmosphere and declare what is allowed and what is not. This is not about pretending negativity does not exist. It is about refusing to permit it to govern the landscape of your mind and the direction of your spirit. When you silence negative influences, you are taking back the authority that might have been surrendered through worry, delay, discouragement, or spiritual fatigue. Negative influences are subtle. Sometimes they enter through thoughts that sound like your own voice, but carry a weight that does not belong to you. Sometimes they appear in the form of emotions that try to convince you that something is wrong, even when nothing has happened. Sometimes they come as memories that attempt to pull you backward, or fears that try to limit your forward movement. Morning silence is a spiritual cleansing. It is the moment where you decide that your inner world belongs to God and cannot be held hostage by anything that contradicts His word. It is where you shut down every voice that tries to influence your day before your day even begins. Balancing negativity is also a process of identifying what does not belong. Not every thought deserves attention. Not every feeling deserves permission. Not every memory deserves access. When you take time in the morning to quiet these forces, you begin to recognize the difference between the sound of your spirit and the noise of the world. You begin to notice which thoughts bring peace and which ones bring tension. You start paying attention to the subtle shifts in your emotions and learning how to dismiss what is trying to attach itself to you without permission. This practice builds spiritual sensitivity. It helps you discern what is coming from God, what is coming from your own unresolved areas, and what is being projected onto you from the spiritual realm. Silence is not emptiness. It is clarity. It is the environment where truth becomes louder than lies. When you silence negative influences, you become aware of the authority you carry. You realize that you do not have to accept every thought that arises, every emotion that appears, or every heaviness that tries to settle. You recognize that you have the right to decide what occupies your spirit. You are not a passive receiver of whatever the day throws at you. You are an active governor of your own atmosphere. You begin to see that spiritual authority is not only expressed through loud declarations, but also through calm decisions. The decision to refuse worry, the decision to release fear, the decision to reject discouragement, the decision to stop rehearsing negative scenarios, the decision to speak life over yourself instead of allowing negativity to whisper limitations. These decisions may seem small, but they shape the entire tone of your day. Once the negative influences are silenced, the next step is to declare the atmosphere of your day. This is not merely speaking positive words. It is establishing spiritual boundaries. It is defining what the atmosphere around you will carry. When you declare the atmosphere, you are deciding that peace will govern your thoughts, clarity will direct your decisions, joy will strengthen your spirit, and faith will shape your expectations. You are deciding that confusion has no authority, chaos has no place, and heaviness has no permission to linger. You are choosing to step into a day shaped by what you speak rather than shaped by what tries to speak to you. Declaration is an act of spiritual creation. It is the moment where you speak what heaven has already released and allow your environment to come into agreement with it. Declaring the atmosphere is powerful because the environment you carry affects everything you touch. It influences how you respond to challenges. It shapes your interactions with people. It determines how quickly you recover from unexpected situations. It affects your focus, your peace, your energy, and your clarity. When the atmosphere around you is filled with divine alignment, you move with a sense of steadiness that nothing can shake. You feel anchored even when the day is demanding. You feel strengthened even when the pace is fast. You feel guarded even when distractions arise. A declared atmosphere becomes your spiritual shield. It protects your mind from unnecessary battles. It protects your emotions from being overwhelmed. It protects your spirit from being weakened by external pressure. Declaring the atmosphere of your day also activates spiritual confidence. You begin to see yourself not as a victim of circumstances, but as someone who shapes the climate you walk into. You start recognizing that you are not waiting for the day to be peaceful. You are creating peace. You are not hoping for clarity. You are commanding clarity. You are not wishing for strength. You are speaking strength. When you begin your day with these declarations, you walk with a confidence that does not rely on external validation or favorable conditions. It comes from knowing that the atmosphere around you has been set by your words and sealed by your faith. There is also a psychological and emotional transformation that takes place when you declare the atmosphere of your day. Your mind begins to anticipate what you have spoken. Your emotions begin to align with what you have declared. Your expectations start forming around the spiritual environment you have chosen. You become more aware of what belongs in your atmosphere and quicker to reject what does not. When stress tries to rise, you remember your declaration of peace. When confusion tries to enter, you remember your declaration of clarity. When negativity tries to speak, you remember your declaration of life. Your declarations become the filters through which your mind processes everything you encounter. Declaring the atmosphere is also an act of spiritual warfare. There are unseen forces that attempt to influence your thoughts, drain your energy, distract your focus, or create emotional instability. When you declare the atmosphere in the morning, you disrupt their assignment, you dismantle their influence. You tell the spiritual realm that your day is off limits to anything that does not serve God's will. You push back against every whisper of doubt, every hint of fear, every seed of discouragement, and every attempt to disrupt your peace. Your words become a weapon. They push darkness out of your environment and invite light into every part of your day. Silencing negativity and declaring the atmosphere also strengthens your spiritual identity. You begin to understand who you are in God. You recognize that you have the authority to set the tone, to govern your inner world, and to guard your spiritual space. This identity does not rise from pride, but from awareness. Awareness that God has equipped you. Awareness that you are not spiritually powerless. Awareness that your voice has weight in the realm of the Spirit. Awareness that your words carry divine backing. Morning declarations remind your soul that you are not fragile, that you are not vulnerable, that you are not easily swayed. You are anchored, empowered, and positioned. Another powerful aspect of declaring the atmosphere of your day is the shift it brings to your expectations. Instead of expecting obstacles to overwhelm you, you expect strength to meet you. Instead of anticipating difficulty, you anticipate provision. Instead of waiting for moments to go wrong, you expect them to align. You move into your day with a posture of faith rather than fear. Your expectations become magnets that attract divine flow. Where fear attracts struggle, faith attracts clarity. Where worry attracts confusion, expectancy attracts breakthrough. Declaring the atmosphere trains your spirit to expect God's best even before you see it. Declaring the atmosphere also cultivates inner discipline. It teaches you to become intentional about what you allow into your mind, what you accept into your emotions, and what you permit into your spirit. It creates a boundary around your peace. It makes you less tolerant of negativity, less vulnerable to frustration, and less susceptible to emotional turbulence. You begin recognizing when something tries to disrupt your atmosphere, and you quickly reestablish what you have spoken. It becomes a spiritual reflex. Instead of spiraling into discouragement, you redeclare your peace. Instead of falling into confusion, you redeclare your clarity. Instead of allowing negativity to grow, you silence it before it spreads. Declaring the atmosphere also brings order to your day. When your inner world is aligned, your external world begins to reflect that alignment. You navigate challenges more effectively. You handle responsibilities with greater ease. You make decisions with more confidence. You communicate with more grace. You respond to pressure with more stability. Your atmosphere becomes the foundation from which order flows. The authority you establish in the morning becomes the structure that holds your day together. This practice also deepens your relationship with God. When you silence negativity and declare your atmosphere, you are engaging with God's presence in a personal and powerful way. You are not reciting memorized words. You are conversing with the one who shapes your destiny. You are not repeating empty affirmations. You are aligning your environment with divine truth. You are not speaking to the air, you are collaborating with heaven. This connection strengthens your spirit and opens your heart to hear God throughout the day. When this becomes your daily rhythm, your days begin to shift. You become less reactive and more intentional. You become less affected by the atmosphere around you and more capable of influencing it. You become less vulnerable to negativity and more grounded in truth. You walk into each day with a sense of spiritual stability that nothing can easily move. Your atmosphere becomes your sanctuary, your strength, and your shield. And it all begins by silencing what does not belong and declaring what must be. Inviting divine guidance, provision, and clarity before you begin your day is an act of humility, trust, and deep spiritual wisdom. It is acknowledging that no matter how capable, experienced, or prepared you are, there are dimensions of life that only God can navigate. When you rise in the morning and intentionally seek His guidance, you position yourself under the flow of divine wisdom that sees beyond your limited perspective. Morning is the most sacred time to ask God to illuminate your path, because it is when your mind is still uncluttered, your spirit is most receptive, and your heart is open to being shaped. Inviting divine direction is not just a request, it is a surrender, a declaration that you refuse to lean solely on your own understanding, and that you recognize God as the architect of your steps, the keeper of your destiny, and the source of your discernment. Divine guidance is more than just asking God to show you what to do. It is allowing Him to shape how you think and see. It is asking Him to sharpen your discernment so that you can tell the difference between distractions and divine appointments, between opportunities that look good and opportunities that are actually aligned with your purpose. When you invite God to guide your day, you are asking Him to order your conversations, your decisions, and your movements so that nothing you do is wasted and no moment is misplaced. You are asking Him to lead you around unnecessary battles and into necessary breakthroughs. Divine guidance protects you from stepping into situations that drain your energy or confuse your purpose. It helps you recognize what is seasonal and what is permanent, what is yours to carry and what is not, what needs your attention and what requires your release. Morning guidance is also about receiving divine insight into situations you do not fully understand. There are things you will face throughout your day that you did not anticipate. There are conversations you will have, decisions you must make, and challenges that may arise. Without divine clarity, these moments can feel overwhelming or unclear. But when you invite God into your day before any of it unfolds, you create a spiritual cushion that carries you through uncertainty with peace. You begin to sense what to say and what not to say. You begin to know when to move forward and when to wait. You begin to recognize when something feels wrong, even if it looks right. Clarity becomes your compass, guiding you in ways that human logic cannot. Inviting divine provision is another essential part of starting your day with spiritual intention. Provision is not just about money or physical resources. It is about everything you need to walk effectively in your purpose. It includes strength, patience, focus, energy, emotional stability, courage, wisdom, and supernatural support. When you ask God for provision in the morning, you are acknowledging that there are parts of your day that will require more than what you naturally possess. You are asking for the grace to handle conversations with kindness, the strength to manage pressure without breaking, the patience to endure delays without frustration, and the resources to seize opportunities that require readiness. Divine provision meets you at the point of your needs, both the needs you are aware of and the needs you do not yet see coming. There is a spiritual intelligence in inviting God to provide before you even know what may unfold. It is acknowledging that He is already in your day, already in your future moments, already making ways, already opening doors, already preparing solutions for challenges you haven't encountered yet. When you ask for provision, you are not begging, you are positioning. You are positioning yourself under divine flow, connecting with the source that never runs dry. You are asking God to release into your hands everything that aligns with your purpose and to close the doors that lead to unnecessary strain. Divine clarity is one of the most powerful gifts you can receive in the morning. Clarity removes confusion before confusion has the chance to settle. It lifts the fog that clouds your judgment. It silences the noise that competes for your attention. It reveals the motives behind situations and people. Clarity is the spiritual lens that helps you navigate the complexities of your day without losing your peace. When you ask for clarity in the morning, you are inviting God to illuminate your steps so brightly that you cannot be deceived, distracted, or derailed. You begin to understand what matters and what does not. You begin to see the bigger picture, not just the momentary pressure. You begin to interpret situations through purpose rather than emotion. Inviting divine guidance, provision, and clarity is also about cultivating sensitivity to God's presence. When you acknowledge Him at the beginning of your day, you become more aware of His voice throughout the day. You start noticing small nudges that direct your decisions. You begin to sense shifts in your spirit when something is not right. You learn how to pause and listen instead of rushing into action. You develop an inner awareness that keeps you aligned even when you are surrounded by noise. Sensitivity to God's presence is not built in chaos. It is built in quiet surrender, in the calm of morning, in the stillness where His Spirit speaks softly but unmistakably. When you invite God to guide your day, you are actively resisting the temptation to rely on your own assumptions. Human understanding is limited, shaped by past experiences, emotions, and perceptions that may not reflect what God is doing now. But divine guidance reveals what you cannot see. It shows you the opportunities hidden inside challenges. It leads you to people who carry answers. It protects you from people who carry distraction. It helps you recognize divine timing so that you do not miss what God has assigned to your day. Guidance ensures that you move in rhythm with heaven, not in reaction to pressure. Divine provision also aligns you with abundance rather than lack. When you ask God to provide, you are rejecting the mentality that says you must strive, struggle, or stress to survive. You are replacing that mindset with the truth that God is your source and that He is already making room for what you need. Provision shows up in unexpected ways, through ideas, through people, through opportunities, through supernatural favor. Provision is not always something you see immediately. Sometimes it unfolds throughout the day in moments where you feel strengthened at just the right time or supported in ways you did not expect. Morning prayer positions you to recognize provision in all its forms. Clarity too unfolds as you move through the day. What felt confusing begins to make sense. What felt heavy becomes lighter. What felt overwhelming becomes manageable. Clarity gives you the confidence to make choices without second guessing yourself. It helps you stay grounded when emotions try to rise. It keeps you from reacting prematurely or making assumptions that lead you into unnecessary conflict. When you walk in clarity, you begin to move with intentionality rather than confusion, with peace rather than pressure, with direction rather than uncertainty. Inviting divine guidance is also a form of honoring God. It acknowledges that He is not just Lord over the spiritual aspects of your life, but over your entire day, your work, your relationships, your decisions, your responsibilities. It is recognizing that He cares about every detail, not just the major issues. When you ask for His guidance, you are including Him in every aspect of your life, not just the moments when you feel desperate. This deepens your relationship with Him. It builds trust. It strengthens your faith. It reminds you that you are never walking alone. Asking for provision also builds gratitude. When you invite God to meet your needs and then recognize how He shows up, your heart becomes more thankful, more aware of His goodness, more sensitive to His faithfulness. Gratitude shifts your entire outlook. It turns stressful moments into reminders of God's presence. It turns small breakthroughs into testimonies. It turns ordinary days into evidence of divine care. Provision trains your heart to recognize the fingerprints of God on your life. Inviting clarity increases your spiritual maturity. It teaches you to value wisdom over impulse, discernment over emotion, patience over haste. Clarity not only strengthens your ability to make wise decisions, it helps you avoid decisions that create future burdens. When your mind is clear, your path becomes easier. When your emotions are aligned, your steps become smoother. When your spirit is grounded, your day becomes more purposeful. Morning alignment with divine guidance, provision, and clarity also shapes the tone of your inner world. You begin the day with peace instead of pressure. You feel more centered instead of scattered. You feel more prepared instead of overwhelmed. You move through your day with a quiet confidence that does not depend on circumstances. You feel guided even when situations are uncertain. You feel supported even when you face challenges. You feel strengthened even when the pace is demanding. Your inner world becomes a reflection of God's presence rather than the influence of external pressures. When this becomes your daily practice, you start noticing that your decisions become wiser, your reactions calmer, your interactions more graceful, and your steps more purposeful. You begin to see God's hand guiding you in ways you never recognized before. You start experiencing moments of divine synchronicity, someone calling at the right moment, a door opening at the perfect time, an answer coming just when you needed it, clarity rising just when confusion tried to settle. These are the results of inviting God into your day before it even begins. As this rhythm becomes consistent, your life begins to take on a new level of flow. Instead of forcing things, you begin receiving. Instead of striving, you begin aligning. Instead of fearing uncertainty, you begin trusting divine timing. Instead of questioning your path, you begin sensing direction. Morning guidance becomes the anchor that steadies you, the compass that directs you, and the shield that surrounds you. Finding divine guidance, provision, and clarity is not just a spiritual discipline. It is a way of life. It is the posture of someone who understands that life is not meant to be navigated alone. It is the posture of someone who recognizes that every step matters, every decision counts, and every moment carries purpose. It is the posture of someone who has learned to lean into God and allow Him to shape the day before the day shapes them. There is a power that rests in the believer who chooses to rise each morning with the awareness that the day is not random, chaotic, or left to circumstance. Every sunrise signals an invitation to step into what God has already prepared, and every moment carries assignments that were crafted long before we opened our eyes. When we choose to command the day to yield its purpose, its promise, and its blessing, we step into alignment with the eternal conversation heaven is already having about us. Nothing about your journey is accidental. Nothing about your day is without meaning. When you speak into the atmosphere with faith, you are not hoping life responds. You are acknowledging that it must respond because the authority God entrusted to you has been activated. To command your day is not an act of arrogance. It is an act of obedience. It is recognizing that God has already established promises that belong to you, provisions that are assigned to you, and breakthroughs that are waiting for your voice to call them forth. Many people move through life reacting to whatever comes, adjusting themselves around challenges, disappointments, or unexpected pressures. But the person who commands their day understands that you do not enter the hours ahead as a passive participant. You step into them as one who carries spiritual jurisdiction. When you declare that the day will yield its blessings, you are not forcing heaven to do something. You are stepping into agreement with what heaven already established. The promises of God do not operate automatically. They respond to faith, to alignment, to obedience, to the language of expectation. Each time you speak over your day, you are opening the gates for the blessings already assigned to enter freely and unhindered. You are clearing the path for the goodness of God to locate you. You are preparing your atmosphere for favor to settle, for answers to appear, for opportunities to unfold. You begin to move differently when you realize that God has embedded something inside each day that is meant to strengthen you, uplift you, mature you, or equip you. The day is not empty. It is filled with divine deposits, sometimes wrapped in simple moments, sometimes hidden behind challenges, sometimes disguised in conversations, decisions, or interruptions. When you command your day, you are calling all of these deposits to surface. You are declaring that you will not miss what was meant to elevate you, that you will not overlook what was meant to grow you, that you will not bypass what was meant to bless you. You are asking God to unfold the blueprint of your day in such a way that you remain sensitive to His timings and movements. You are refusing to let distraction, fatigue, fear, or discouragement blind you to the opportunities that were placed specifically for your benefit. As you speak into your day, you also dismantle anything that seeks to steal the blessings assigned to you. You tear down discouragement before it takes root. You silence confusion before it pulls you off track. You weaken fear before it has the chance to whisper. You dismantle spiritual resistance by acknowledging your authority in Christ. When you declare that the day must yield its purpose, you are refusing to let opposition redefine your expectation. You are announcing that no matter what arises, the blessing attached to this day cannot be removed, cannot be delayed, and cannot be denied. You are reinforcing the truth that God's intention stands firm even when life tries to bend it. There is a confidence that settles into your spirit when you understand that blessings are not optional decorations in your life. They are inheritances. They are spiritual truths waiting to be manifested in the natural realm. They respond to your voice because your voice is tied to your identity in Him. Your declarations become the spiritual framework for how you move through your day. When you speak blessing, you train your mind to expect blessing. When you speak purpose, you position your heart to recognize purpose. When you speak alignment, you create a posture that welcomes God's guidance without resistance. There is a harmony that begins to form between your spirit and the will of God. When you continually command your day, you become less reactive and more intentional. You become less driven by emotion and more anchored in faith. You stop viewing obstacles as signs of defeat and begin seeing them as indicators that something valuable is being protected. You shift from waiting for something good to happen to preparing for something good to manifest. This is the difference between hoping for blessings and commanding your blessings to surface. The blessings assigned to your day are often connected to people, moments, decisions, and opportunities. When you release your declaration, you give heaven permission to orchestrate these pieces in your favor. You call forth the people who carry answers, wisdom, support, or partnership. You summon clarity in the places where confusion has lingered. You call direction into the moments where uncertainty tries to weaken your focus. You summon strength where weariness attempts to settle. The words you speak become heavenly signals, activating and accelerating what was waiting for your agreement. Every blessing has a timing, but your faith positions you to be present at the right moment, with the right posture, with the right awareness, ready to receive what has been set aside for you. There's also an internal transformation that takes place when you command your day. Your spirit begins to rise in confidence. Your faith grows more anchored. Your perspective becomes more refined. You begin to recognize patterns in how God speaks to you, how He leads you, how He answers you. You become aware of the subtle ways He places blessings in your path, and your gratitude multiplies. Even small blessings begin to shine with greater significance, because your spirit is attuned to the movements of heaven. When your inner world aligns with God's promises, you naturally become more receptive to the blessings around you. Your eyes open, your spirit expands, your awareness heightens. What others overlook, you perceive. What others treat casually, you nurture. This is how blessings multiply. They thrive in the environment of awareness. To command your day is also to recognize that blessings are not always wrapped in ease. Some blessings come through challenges that refine you. Some come through conversations that stretch you. Some come through responsibilities that mature you. Some come through decisions that require courage. When you declare that your day must yield its blessings, you are saying that even the difficult parts of the day must work together for your growth. You are declaring that nothing is wasted, nothing is meaningless, nothing is random. You are announcing that every inch of the day is under divine supervision, and every moment will serve your spiritual progress. You are acknowledging that God can use anything to bless you, and therefore you will not fear unexpected turns or unfamiliar paths. Instead, you expect God to reveal purpose through every situation, whether pleasant or challenging. This is why commending your day is more than speaking words. It is entering into partnership with God. It is saying, I am present, I am willing, I am ready. It is presenting yourself as a vessel through which His will can flow. It is opening yourself to the rhythm of His guidance. It is surrender blended with authority, humility blended with confidence. It is faith that speaks while also listening. It is spiritual alignment that draws heaven's intention into earthly manifestation. When you declare your day, you align your voice with His promises, your expectation with His plans, your thoughts with His truth. There is nothing passive about this. It is deliberate. It is active. It is a daily discipline that shapes your inner world and transforms your outer reality. From the moment you begin to command your day, every part of you begins to shift. Your posture straightens, your mindset strengthens, your emotions